Ooh, you didn't tell me you were a brainiac.
Welcome into Leather Brains, your host, Slap Dog, episode 187, and I have my two very good friends, Alan Casanova Castro and the producer himself, Mr. Scotty Del Rey. Gentlemen, football is officially back. Kind of, sort of. There's an asterisk. There's an asterisk. We got to see some football this weekend, which was a very glorious thing. It really got me very excited for fantasy football, which is just right around the corner. But it was still preseason, so it was preseason. I don't know if I need to say more than that. On today's show, we're going to be talking about preseason. We're going to be talking about mainly the rookie quarterbacks. It's something that I think a lot of people, it's captivating NFL media right now, as well as ourselves, because we're finally getting to see the rookie debuts for a lot of different players that were drafted this last year. So we're going to be talking about that. A little bit of kickoff rule controversy. We're going to talk about that as well. Jerry Jones still doesn't want to pay his players, so we'll discuss that, as well as the Raiders quarterback depth chart. So before we do any of that, got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Erica's Healthy Pet. Guys, I'm telling you right now, I have this. For those of you that are not watching, I'm holding Erica's Healthy Pet shampoo in my hand right this very moment. I have two golden retrievers. One of them has terrible skin. He's got seasonal allergies. He breaks out in scabs. This shampoo has been wonderful. So it is actually herbal itch relief shampoo that I got from Erica's Healthy Pet. It is wonderful. There's so many different things besides shampoo that you can get there. There's treats. There's different food and other articles besides shampoo, but are like topical solutions for your pet as well. Go check it out. ericashealthypet.com. Use code LB20 for 20% off. And if you want to go check out Scotty eat some of the dog food from a couple episodes ago, you can do that as well. It was quite entertaining. All right, let's jump into it, boys. Let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks. Let's start out with the 101, Mr. Caleb Williams himself. I'll start by asking this. Did you guys get to watch football this weekend?
Okay, yes. I was busy, but I record. This is totally nerding. I recorded most of the preseason games, so I could at least watch a little bit of everyone. Mainly all of these quarterbacks we're discussing. So yes, dove in.
Yeah. It was cool. It was cool this time of preseason. You know, the Hall of Fame game, we didn't get to see much of it, but this time of preseason, the first couple drives all the way up to the end of the first quarter, you're seeing first teams play each other. So it gives you, it scratches that itch a little bit where you're actually seeing like pretty high level football being played. And of course it degrades after that. But Caleb Williams, he looked pretty good. I mean, he wasn't out there for very long, but his time out there, he had a couple absolute darts. And then that weird screen pass thing where he's running away from the pressure and then he throws it like over his shoulder. He looked, I hate to say it.
Say it.
I hate to say it.
That
looked a lot like Mr. Patrick Mahomes when he did that. Now, no expectations, though, because we were told in Hard Knocks that you can't, Nick Saban said you can't put any expectations on anybody because that makes them suck. So no expectations.
Caleb doesn't know about Leather Brains just yet. So we can put as much expectations on him as we want.
Also, Nick Saban's not my dad. He's going to win 3 Super Bowls. That's what I heard. That's what I heard Scotty say. Caleb looked amazing. He was doing the things that he did at USC, which you always wonder, like, is this going to be transferable? I mean, it's just in this man's DNA. You know, he's going to try to make a play, and I think he's going to do some things, obviously, that are a little bit boneheaded. But, I mean, who doesn't anymore? You know, you look at some of the great quarterbacks right now with Mahomes or Josh Allen or whomever, and they're trying to make plays. And I think that's what you saw a glimpse of what I think Chicago's going to see this year is he's going to at least go down swinging. You know, he's not going to take some of the sacks that maybe we saw Justin Fields take last year. I think you're going to see him try to make plays. He's going to extend things. He might throw a couple bad balls, but he's going to give you those plays that Scotty just alluded to. That little toss that he threw to Swift where he kind of got lost in the wash on the play and waited, gave it to him at the last second, which is very Mahomes-esque of like, I'm just going to hold it to the very last possible moment. And then he skirted for like 40 yards. And it was like, wow, that's what this team's missing. Like just get the playmakers the ball. And so that was really nice to see from Caleb.
Well, the one big difference too, obviously there are probably lots of differences, but when we were having the Justin Fields discussion as to whether or not they should hang on to him or they should draft Caleb Williams, The big difference from the eye test perspective was just the velocity on his passes. This dude's got a cannon, and he is accurate. Like there's very little arc to the ball. It's just right where he wants to go. And when you compare that to what Justin Fields was doing, nothing against Justin Fields because he's a great athlete, but you can just tell, oh, Caleb Williams is like a real quarterback. Like this guy is actually going to play the position. So we're talking about a tiny sample size. Maybe he sucks, but it seems like if you're a Bears fan, you have a lot to be excited about this season.
I do have to ask you guys, like, does this qualm the murmurs of they should have kept Justin Fields? And obviously we don't know what Caleb Williams is, and we now have a little bit better of an understanding, but there are some Bears fans out there, I promise you, that were very upset that Justin Fields was on his merry way, and they thought that they should keep Justin Fields and trade the first overall for a haul. Do you think that maybe, and granted, this is preseason, so we're all overreacting, but does this kind of say, okay, yeah, you guys were wrong. Like, there is a very clear, distinct difference between Justin Fields versus Caleb Williams, and this was the right move?
Yeah, I think going off of the beginning of last season, that was more in question, as Scotty alluded to. Like, there was, should they keep him or not? What should they do? I think the biggest difference here is that the trust this coaching staff is going to have, and I think the fans are going to have with these two quarterbacks, the difference is making off-schedule plays. I think with Justin Fields, the one play he could make was he could run. And that was what we saw. Even when they were like tooling with the offense, that was the thing he brought you. And I think Caleb Williams, he's going to get the ball into the hands of the playmakers. Just like I said, like, I don't think there's any question. I don't even think we needed to see Caleb Williams play to know that the upside of Caleb Williams far outweighed maybe the possibility of something that Justin Fields could be. There's plenty of tape on Justin Fields and what he was. I think this is something for your franchise. They needed something. They needed a shot in the arm. And especially when you go all in with the playmakers that they did, you have to bring in somebody that can get him the ball. And I think this is just, is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Maybe. Scotty's saying he's going to win 3 Super Bowls. That's what I heard. I don't know. It's going to be somewhere in there is, I think, where you're going to find Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I look at it from the perspective of a Bears fan, and this is a team that for a long time now has been middle of the pack to very much below average. And so I think, if Justin Fields was quarterbacking this offense with the weapons that they have right now, I think you would have seen a much better Justin Fields because he was, obviously they had DJ Moore last year, but outside of that, he didn't really have a ton of help. But with that said, when you're just looking at it from a fan's perspective, you're like, okay, we could have Justin Fields. He could play the best he's ever played with all these weapons, and it still feels like there's a cap as far as his potential. And with Caleb Williams, whether or not it's right, you get the sense that like, oh, this guy could be the next best player to ever play the game. And you have that option with Caleb Williams. So looking at it in hindsight, it's like, yeah, I understand why, if anything, just for the fan base, just for the franchise, where they're like, we want to shoot for the stars because we're sick of being middle of the pack. And that answer is Caleb Williams.
Before we move on from Justin Fields, I do have one more question for you guys. So, Scotty, you had kind of mentioned this, like this team is different, right? This team is not the same team that Justin Fields has played with. Is there any hesitation that Justin Fields, from your guys' perspective, might not even be the quarterback of the future for the Steelers after kind of seeing what Caleb Williams has done? And granted, there's more weapons here with the Bears and the team does look a little bit different, but overall, we know what Justin Fields is. We've got to see Justin Fields these last few years, and a lot of people are saying it was a coaching staff. The coaching staff was not utilizing him properly. They were not developing him properly. He had immense turnover throughout his entire tenure with the Bears. So do we think that Justin Fields still even has an opportunity, or do you think that just what we've seen in a little glimpse of Caleb Williams has showcased that maybe Justin Fields is what Justin Fields is and there's no more for him to give?
I don't think it's apples to apples with this comparison. I think what philosophically the Bears are trying to do with this offense lend itself more to a Caleb Williams type. They needed that arm. They needed the arm talent. They needed the power. Not that Fields can't throw it, but on time, throwing with power, throwing with accuracy, I think was more of what Caleb Williams is needing for this. I think for the Steelers, they actually might be in pretty good situations. I think as we go to the middle of the year, I think Fields could be very serviceable depending on what happens with Russell Wilson. I think with Tomlin, we talked about it last episode, I think he knows how to put people in the right position. He's been there for a long time. He knows what to do with these individuals. He knows what to do with his players. And I think they're going to end up, in good situations, but I don't think we should keep going back and like clawing back and saying, oh, well, did they make the right decision? Oh, they didn't make the right decision. You know what? They're two philosophically different things, and they're just going to go let them play out. And we talk about player situations all the time, and I think they're just going to be in better situations overall, both of them.
Okay.
Is that your dog back there, Hunter? That's a real big Justin Fields fan?
No, that would be Alan's dog that loves Justin Fields. Got that dog in him. Jayden Daniels. Let's talk about him next. The Commanders are a frisky team for me. I'm just going to be completely honest with you guys. I think that going into this, the Commanders aren't getting a lot of hype from the NFL media. They're not being talked about nearly as much as somebody like the Bears. But I think the Commanders are really freaking frisky. I think that they're one of those kind of like the Lions of the last few years. Like they're kind of the up and comer. And I think the Commanders have that potential. And I think a large part of that is due to Jayden Daniels. There's been a lot of turnover at that organization. Obviously, Riverboat Ron is no longer around. Dan Quinn's a head coach, and one of the things that I really liked that he did was Eric Bieniemy, I have a lot of respect for. I think he is a great offensive coordinator. He's not there anymore, but they have Cliff Kingsbury, and I think that is a really great move for the Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury, historically, if you look at his resume, he works with quarterbacks that are very, very similar to Patrick Mahomes, Jayden Daniels. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is who he coached in college. He coached Kyler Murray, and now he has Jayden Daniels. These guys are prototypically your playmakers that are very mobile, and I think this works well. And we kind of got to see that a little bit with Jayden Daniels. I was impressed. I think Jayden Daniels looked great. He's one of those guys that I think will be a game changer for that organization. I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, Jayden Daniels he's just one of those players that has the potential. He's very similar to Justin Fields in that you could see how he could be a game changer, but we have to see it first. You know, Jayden Daniels is someone who's going to have to prove it, and this is an offense kind of full of guys like that, so it's tough to know how competitive they're going to be because you could see them shooting for the stars, but you could also see them kind of fizzling out. I still don't know. I have to see more, but one thing is for sure is that since RG3, I think Jayden Daniels is going to be the most exciting option that they have at quarterback for the fan base. So it's going to be fun to watch regardless of how much success they end up having.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting how much they put on him. I think he's going to have to make plays for them to be successful. And I think Cliff knows that. You know, he knows that he has to develop him and he has to start making plays early because, like you said, they don't have a ton of weapons. I mean, shout out Ayuk trying to get over there and play with the Redskins. Obviously, he saw something that we all might be discovering in real time. But if they had a playmaker like that, maybe they tone it down on him. But I think he's going to have to make plays, and I think this is going to be positive for him if he can answer the bell. But that's one of those things. We talk about it all the time, like the situation you're in. How does it dictate? Like if Jayden Daniels was on the Chiefs and got to be with Andy Reid, would it be different? Like yeah, absolutely. And so I think you have to look at it through that lens that, he is with Cliff Kingsbury, and he's going to get some of that development. But I think I'm excited, especially from a fantasy perspective. Like if that's how they plan on running that offense, man, that makes it really attractive, especially late rounds if you're trying to shore up your roster and get a backup. Like if he's going to be chucking it around, you can live with interceptions because he's going to hit some bombs.
Yeah. Yeah, Patriots. Joe Milton. Is he I mean,
it's funny that he's the one that everyone's talking about, but
like it's what's curious is, or not curious, but kind of shocking is like media talking heads were kind of talking about him over Drake May, and they're like, Joe Milton has looked better than Drake May in camp. Joe Milton has looked more poised and thrown better balls than Drake May, and it really begs the question. They're both rookies this year, but is Drake May a bust? I mean, the Patriots aren't going to be good. I think we can all agree on that. Like they're in turmoil, but what do we think about Joe? Admittedly, I didn't get to watch this game, so I'm not gonna chime in too much.
But Joe Milton looked like Cam Newton. I mean, he was just ridiculous. He's just ridiculously huge and athletic. So he provides that other layer. It's just all these people saying, "Oh, Joe Milton is the best quarterback on this team." It's like they forgot to watch him throughout all of his college career. Like this guy is very mistake prone. Very much so. So I just think it's one of those things that, they're very obviously in a rebuild situation right now. I don't think anyone expects them to compete outside of maybe Patriots fans who are a little bit delusional. So I think right now they're just going to kind of let it play out and see. And, it's possible Joe Milton comes out and starts, but I don't think that that's a long-term situation regardless.
Yeah, Joe Milton at Tennessee, I mean, had it not been for some knee injuries, I think he probably would have been even higher on draft boards. But obviously, he has some injury concerns. But same thing. He likes to go out and make plays. And we just talked about this with Jayden Daniels. Like when you don't have a lot of options, the Patriots cutting Juju, making peace with some things, not getting certain playmakers that they wanted, like they might need somebody like this that's like, F it. I have a cannon. I'm going to go out and try to make plays. And I think if Joe Milton can stay healthy, I think the one thing you don't want to see if you're an NFL fan is quarterback controversy, because that's not where you want to be. But
they did
if
it
you're
last
the
year
Patriots,
too.
Yeah, but if you're the Patriots, it's kind of like, again, your roster isn't built to do anything anyways. You have a new first-year head coach. You're post Belichick. Like this is a totally new journey. You don't know what to expect. And like at this point, it's just put somebody on the field that gives us somewhat of a semblance of an excitement team. Because this year, that's totally what it's going to be. It's going to be who's just going to make it exciting for me and who gives us an opportunity to win. And I think Joe Milton could be that, especially what we're hearing with Drake May, which is wildly surprising because I thought he was going to be pretty well polished coming out of North Carolina. Like he could make plays and do all those things. So a weird spot to be in, but also kind of nice if you're a Patriots fan, because you're like, screw it. Like we're post Bill Belichick. Like we know we're not going to win anything. This division is really tough. So we might as well just see what we got out of both these guys. So if there's a positive coming out of this for Patriots fans, is like just sit back and enjoy these two, see what you get, and then see where this coaching staff goes in the future.
Well, it's also good that if you can, Drake May is obviously the highly touted draft pick, and he's someone that you hope is going to be the future of the franchise. So if you have an opportunity to play a serviceable quarterback and maybe win some games you're not supposed to win throughout the season while letting Drake May sit on the sideline and develop over the course of time, that's a win-win. And you might only win 6 games this year, if that. But if you get an opportunity to let your future star quarterback, or who you hope to be your future star quarterback, develop for the season and not put too much pressure on him, and also you have Joe Milton out there making the Sports Center top 10, a couple times, throughout the season, then that's a win-win, and I think that's probably what they end up doing.
My concern with that is what would that look like from a media perspective? Because you're going to not let Drake May play because you want him to develop, but yet you're going to roll out your other freshman or your rookie quarterback out and let him play over that. And it's like, and then what happens if Joe Milton starts actually looking good? And then that begs the question, what happens with Drake May? So I understand what you're saying, Scotty. And I think that, it holds merit, but for how long? And that's really where I would start to scratch my head.
I don't think there's any. Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to interrupt. I don't think there's any controversy there at all. I think pretty much everyone would understand. Okay, Joe Milton. When was he drafted? It was like a 6th round pick.
Yeah, 5th or 6th, I think.
Something like that. So I think everyone understands the expectations for both of these guys as individuals, and so allowing Drake May to take in the offense while Joe Milton's out there just making plays. And then if Joe Milton wins them a bunch of games, then great. Like then you have a very good problem to have, where you have a quarterback that you're comfortable in, or you can sell for a lot.
We just did this with the 49ers. He was a 6th round draft pick. We just did this with the 49ers. You take Trey Lance, you take this thing, you have Brock Purdy at the back. He's kind of serviceable. We'll see what we get. This isn't the NFL of old where you're investing so heavily in these draft picks anymore. Like that's why they have the rookie pay scale for this exact thing, because the rookie contracts, especially back when you had like Jamarcus Russells of the world coming out, like you were so hamstrung. Like it doesn't matter if the first round pick doesn't work, but you have another quarterback, who gives a shit? Flip flop them. Erase one name, put the other name there. Like it's all irrelevant. At the end of the day, you just want to find somebody that can lead this offense. And if it's one of the two, great. What you don't want to have happen is that it's neither of the two. Yeah. Best case scenario is one of the two, and you just live with it and move on.
Well, you mentioned the 49ers, and I think, look, I don't work in the 49ers front office, but I would presume that you asked most of the 49ers organization, and they would admit that Trey Lance was a mistake. Like they would say they wish they didn't do that. Yeah, I mean, I obviously, like he's not there anymore, right? Like they know it's a mistake, and so yeah, good on them for recognizing that and moving on. But I still think teams aren't that draft capital still plays a part in it, because they were going to give Trey Lance a shot, and then he got hurt, and then Jimmy got hurt, and obviously they found themselves in the situation that they were in, and Brock Purdy has shined, but that draft capital I still think does play a part in it, because people carry that bias with them. Like people carry that with them and say like, okay, well, he was a first round draft pick. He should be starting over so-and-so. And so skill, obviously, I think at the end of the day will outshine itself. But I bring all this to attention because the 49ers, and I don't know if this is true, but the GM of the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, went into his office the day that when training camp started, Brock Purdy's rookie year, and Kyle Shanahan told the GM, our third string quarterback is our best quarterback. Now, how much of that is fodder to try and, make it seem like the 49ers knew what they were talking about? I don't know if that's true or not. But in the event that it is, well, then why'd you roll out Jimmy G for another year and then you tried to do Trey Lance? And like I said, I think that plays a part.
If you want to do revisionist history on what could have happened if the 49ers did not take Trey Lance, I've seen some mock drafts, like do-over drafts coming up, and they would have selected Micah Parsons.
God, that would have been disgusting.
They probably would have liked that a lot more looking back.
So to stand back, to totally derail my own point, it sucks, but you can't go back and do it. You just got to cut your losses and move forward. Yeah, There's how many do-overs could we find all over the NFL draft? That draft alone, you had quarterbacks going all over the place that didn't make sense. Like, sure, you could have, but I think going back to the original talking point of the New England Patriots, and is it Joe Milton or is it Drake May? I think at this point, you just want one of them to work out and then call it good. Financially, it might be better for you if it is Joe, because you're able to do some things like the 49ers are able to do, but who knows? You just want to have a successful quarterback if you're a fan and let the rest sort itself out.
Well, they're rebuilding. And there's another team that's rebuilding heavily, and it's the Broncos with Bo Nix. Guys, this was the one that I was most excited for this weekend because I wanted to see what is this kid going to look like. Currently, he's not even the starting quarterback for them. I think he's third string over Zach Wilson, and I can't even remember. Yes.
Was it Stidham? I can't remember.
I think it is Stidham.
Yeah, because they're all we all thought they were like the same guy. They had three of the same quarterback.
Yeah. So
he's got a type.
I wanted to see what Bo Nix was going to do, and because he's not the starting quarterback, after watching this game, I think he probably should be.
It's hard.
I thought
hard
he looked
to argue
really
against
good.
it.
I thought he looked really good, which makes me hate. I hate it because I think Sean Payton's the POS, but I watched Bo Nix play and I was like, dude, first and foremost, this guy needs better receivers because all the throws he was throwing, they were darts and he threw it in coverage, but his receivers dropped so many balls. And I was like, dude, and my heart kind of felt for him because I was like, you hit your receiver. He just didn't catch the dang thing. And he looked good. I was really impressed with Bo Nix.
Yeah, this was probably the one outside of Caleb Williams that I was really excited to see this weekend. And I made sure to spend some time watching some of the film because I wanted to see what Sean Payton was seeing. Obviously, post-draft, he was somewhat attracted to him in some way. Thought he was bigger. He mentioned he was bigger. Yeah, it seemed there was some sexual tension, and I wanted to see how that would translate to the field. And I think the things that are portable for Bo Nix that could work in this offense if Sean Payton's not an idiot is he's obviously really good at the quick, intermediate passing. He can do quick outs. He can get it out of his hands in a hurry, and then he can scramble and he can get you yardage on the ground, which this team's going to desperately need because of what you just said on. They lack a lot of deep threats. Anybody that can catch the ball, they need playmakers. And going back to the other quarterbacks, if he can make plays for you, this is going to be valuable to your franchise because it makes you attractive in free agency. You're able to scheme up things a little bit differently for your offense. And so I was pleasantly surprised. Let's see if he can repeat it. But the things that looked that wasn't fluke plays. He was just making great throws on time and running. Those are all things you want to see right now from a young quarterback.
It's like a younger Russell Wilson almost.
Maybe I don't know what you mean by that, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like Bo Nix definitely surpassed my expectations, and it might just be my hatred for the Broncos. I expected him to absolutely suck, but he looked like he was in control. The problem is as Hunter said, there's no weapons. There are no weapons on this offense. So Bo Nix can be as good as possible, and it's probably not going to matter for this team. It's just they have to this year, correct? Yeah, they have to hold the fan base and everyone in the front office has to make sure that their expectations are in check because Bo Nix could be great and they still not see success. So they have to have that long-term plan. I think they do. So I think the Broncos are going to be better and better.
Yeah.
Do you think they have a plan in place?
Wow. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But my point is, I think they're thinking long term. I think they recognize they're not playing for a Super Bowl right now, so they're thinking long term. Yeah,
I would hope so. I mean, they hemorrhaged half their team this offseason and just threw them out into the wind.
It's true.
So,
that's true.
Like, yeah, it is. And so you look at it and it's like, well, if you were to ask me, do I think that the Broncos have a plan? I'd laugh in your face. But I watched Bo Nix play, and I'm like, maybe you like it was the little an inkling. Yeah, like maybe you did,
or they got lucky,
or they
just stumbled upon it.
Sure.
Oh, this is gonna work, maybe.
Yeah, because like what I mean, you traded away Jerry Jeudy, Russell Wilson, you just gave to the Steelers for free, like, and I'm sitting there like, what the hell are you guys doing? And then you draft Bo Nix, and you all think you were super excited about it, and I'm sitting there like, is this really a win for you guys? But then I watched him play, and I was like, well, maybe it was. Maybe Sean Payton I still think is a scumbag piece of shit, but maybe he knew what he was doing here. I still think the Russell Wilson letting him go was stupid. But
so one more question before we move on. If you are Sean Payton, and I know you don't want to be, but if you were,
never,
are you starting Bo Nix? Given the situation of the offense, you know you're not going to have a lot of success probably. Are you starting Bo Nix rather than allowing him to develop over the course of the season, or you just say get your ass out there and start?
Who is he going to develop behind? That's the question. Zach Wilson, Jason Stidham.
Yeah, I don't think Sean Payton has that kind of time. I think he needs to prove it. You know, he needs if he wants to keep that role in Denver and all the power he has that they want. This has to work for him. He picked Bo Nix. He was excited about Bo Nix. He talked about how he's attracted to Bo Nix. He's in love with Bo Nix, maybe, and
said he was big.
Yeah, you don't leave the guy you say was big on the bench. You start the guy you say was big, and that's kind of a general rule, I think, for NFL head coaches.
Okay, but define work. What do you mean by work?
He needs to show that he can move. He can be Russell Wilson or better. That's honestly the benchmark.
I agree with that, because if Bo Nix worked out exactly like Zach Wilson did for the Jets, Sean Payton loses his job.
Yeah, he's out.
That's the gist of it. Like, he has to have Bo Nix work, because if he does not succeed and is not a successful quarterback, and the thing is they don't need to come out and win 75% of their games this year. In fact, they don't even have to win half their games or a third of their games.
The line is 5.5.
Yeah, if they win 5 games this year, that's fine. But what they have to do is they have to show that Bo Nix can be developed into a franchise quarterback. And if that's the case, then they're fine.
You need to be able to sell promise.
I think that's such a challenge, though, to sell promise given the makeup of the offense. Because like I said, Bo Nix can come out and be a great quarterback, but they're going to struggle on offense. Like they're not going to win a lot of games because the team overall is not very good, and they're not going to win a lot of games because they're not scoring points, no matter how good Bo Nix is. So I think from the front office perspective, Bo Nix is out there, and maybe Sean Payton says, yeah, I really like what I see, but guess what? If he's throwing for 175 yards a game and throwing 2 interceptions a game because nobody's getting open, well, it's going to be hard for him to overcome that. So I think you're creating sort of insurmountable expectations for Bo Nix, when in reality, you could have him sit and say, yeah, we're in a rebuilding year. We're going to let Bo Nix learn the offense with Sean Payton, spend a year with Sean Payton, and then Sean Payton can continue hyping him up in the media. And at that point, you're selling that promise without allowing your brand new quarterback to get pummeled on the field for the entire year and everyone think he sucks.
I don't know. I think you got to see what you have so you can make adjustments next offseason. I think you got to know if Bo can do it. And the eyes will tell you. The stats aren't going to really, the stats are going to be what they are. I think it's going to be the eye test. Like, does he look good doing it? Does he look in control and command? Like, is he just missing wide receiver? Like last year for the Chiefs is a perfect example. The wide receivers were dropping balls all over the place. It was a travesty, but it wasn't like, oh, Mahomes can't do it because the stats aren't there. No, your eyes told you it's still there. It's just not working because of the pieces. And I think that's where the Broncos need to get to. Now, this overreaction season, this was just one game. Let's see if he can do it again. And let's see if he can do it again after that.
In preseason,
and then when and then when the lights are actually on in the regular season, let's see what happens. But I think what you saw was better than I think what a lot of people anticipated, which is why you're getting this overreaction to Bo Nix, because it was a low bar.
Do you think Bo Nix looked good, Scotty?
Yeah, I do. He looked a lot better than I expected.
Well, I agree with that. Yeah, I feel the same. I share that same sentiment. But like, you've seen what Zach Wilson is. If Zach Wilson were to go out there and do okay, I'd be like, okay, like, you've been in the league for 4 years now, right? 4 or 5, however long he's been in the league. I think Bo Nix looked better than Zach Wilson did. And granted, this is preseason, so I don't want to overreact. But to Allen's credit, like I think that Mahomes analogy was Johnny on the spot. Like you watch Patrick Mahomes, and it wasn't Patrick Mahomes' fault that the receivers weren't catching the ball. And like we all last year, not just us, but all media talking heads were saying the Chiefs wide receiver room is a problem, and it's not Patrick Mahomes is a problem. It's the Chiefs wide receiver room is a problem, and that's because you can see that.
I know, but we've got, several Super Bowls of history to tell us it's not Patrick Mahomes' fault, and we don't have that with Bo Nix. So I think the leash is much shorter on him, just from a fan's perspective. When you're watching him play, if you're not seeing production, and it might not be, Patrick Mahomes was real obvious because he was hitting receivers in the face and they were dropping the ball. But Bo Nix could be a situation where they don't have a ton of weapons that are able to create space, so that makes him throw into coverage, and when he does that, he's going to throw interceptions, and people are going to, or maybe the offensive line isn't as good, and so now he's under pressure a lot and panicking. Like that sort of stuff is going to happen when you're on a bad team. And so I just think they might be throwing him into a situation that could, not to say he can't come out of it. I mean, maybe he's a great player, that will be fine, but it's much more difficult in that situation.
I agree. One last point. This is the longest I've ever talked about the Broncos, by the way. I'm pretty sure I've set a personal best on talking about them. The thing that's going to be interesting for this team as a whole is if this also doesn't work out and the Sean Payton thing doesn't work out, like do the Broncos move away from John Elway as well? And like now that whole franchise is in a little bit of an identity crisis moving forward because, John Elway's their guy and they love him dearly. But post Peyton Manning and getting Peyton Manning on that team, it's been just a series of just wild, bad decisions, bad draft picks and poor coaching picks, which is a direct reflection of that front office. And so the underlying thing to this whole Bo Nix scenario is if this doesn't work out, you're going to see a lot of dominoes fall, I think, for this team. Wow. And so Broncos, that's the other reason they need to see if it's going to work. And I think also John Elway is under a lot of pressure to see this thing through immediately because I think the hot seat on everybody turns up.
As he should be, in my opinion.
And I think sitting Nix actually buys everybody more time, because you're selling what could be instead of trying to sell what we're seeing with our own eyes on the field. And so I actually think that might be another political reason, not to say that it's right or wrong, but that might be a reason where some people are motivated to keep him on the bench, because then they can say, well, look, we'll have this in due time once we restructure everything and give him more time, and then everybody can kind of take a breath. Whereas if you start him right now, the conversation's happening right now about everybody all the way up to the top.
I still think it needs to happen. Rip off the Band-Aid. I think Sean Payton's still a piece of shit, but I do think Bo Nix needs as much time. Because the other thing that Alan said earlier was you need to sell Bo Nix as an option that's appealing for people. Look at CJ Stroud, right? Like CJ Stroud was playing with a bunch of nobodies. Nico Collins and Tank Dell we weren't talking about them last season at all. We were like, it's the Texans. They got CJ Stroud. Best of luck. And now we're like, Nico Collins is a wide receiver 1. Tank Dell's sexy. And look what CJ Stroud did to elevate that team. And so, and I'm not saying Bo Nix is going to be the next CJ Stroud, but my point being is they threw CJ Stroud in there and he excelled. And I think that you get down to brass tacks, your playmakers create plays for you. And that's exactly what CJ Stroud has done. And I think that's what you need to see if you have in Bo Nix. And if you don't, well, you're fucked. But let's put the political trying to keep our jobs aside for a moment and just look at it from a football standpoint. And it's like, okay, what do we have to lose? Zach Wilson's not going to be a long-term solution. Jason Stidham's not going to be a long-term solution. Give him till week 3. Throw Bo Nix out there and just say, "Hey, man, best of luck. We're here for you, and we want you to succeed. But we kind of need to see if we're gonna have a job next year or not." Because I think at some point the political stuff, people are gonna start asking questions, and they're gonna kind of get forced into that if they don't play him at some point. So there's another quarterback that is kind of on the fence right now. He is not quarterback number 1 as a rookie right now, and that being J.J. McCarthy with the Vikings. Another guy who's really, really interested to see, and there's a lot of reasons why. You have Justin Jefferson over there. Is he going to be happy with his new quarterback? What were your guys' thoughts on JJ McCarthy when he was rolled out here in the preseason game?
It kind of flat, not really like anything to be too upset about, nothing to be too excited about. I think he made some plays. He threw some good balls, but he also had some weird throws. He threw into coverage, like some things that I think people were kind of leery in. And so it was more of like, I don't know if we learned anything, honestly, from his outing like we did some of the others. I think we kind of got what we were expecting. It was a quarterback that really needs his confidence to be high, and he needs to work within that offense and trust his playmakers. And we'll see. I think it was just more of like, it's about what I thought I was going to get from this guy about, throwing 188, couple touchdowns, pick. He's got weapons to do that. So I think he kind of did what we thought. But he made some mistakes that we also thought he was going to make. So it was just a total flat line for me of like not positive or negative, just kind of that's what I thought I was going to get.
Yeah, I think when I see JJ McCarthy, I see someone who we don't know what his potential is yet. I think between all the rookies that we've discussed, maybe aside from, I don't know, Joe Milton, you see JJ McCarthy and you're like, this guy is not a finished product yet, but he could be very good, especially with the weapons on this team. So the more, we see clips in camp and obviously seeing him in the preseason, I'm starting to agree with the idea, okay, Sam Darnold, start the season, let JJ McCarthy learn, because I think he could develop into a very, very good quarterback. And what I saw, I think is similar to Bo Nix. Now, he didn't play as well as Nix did, but I didn't expect him to look as polished for most of the plays as he did. I think he made some good throws. He had 116 passer rating, so it's not like he was out there throwing ducks. He looked pretty good. I just think he needs to learn a little bit more, and I trust this offense and this system to develop him properly. Eventually, I think he's going to be a very good quarterback.
Out of all the quarterbacks that we've talked about thus far, I think JJ played the worst. Just based on my eye test, right? I was kind of just scratching my head at some of the things that he was doing, and there was one play in particular that really stands out to me, and this is the one that the media grabbed, was he threw a long touchdown to the wide receiver, and Justin Jefferson was like all excited and happy. It wasn't him that caught the ball, but he was on the sideline and he was happy or whatever that JJ threw the ball. And if you watch that clip, the wide receiver was so open. I think almost like if you're a quarterback in the NFL and you can't make that throw, you have no business being a quarterback in the NFL. And I'm like, that's not impressive. Your wide receiver had the DB beat significantly, and you threw the ball right to him. Which good on you, I guess, for making that read and getting it taken care of. But I wasn't impressed. JJ McCarthy did not pass the eye test for me, and I have a lot of belief that Kevin O'Connell is a good coach, and I think he will, hopefully develop JJ, and I think all Vikings fans are hoping that too. But a small part of me is like, man, like you guys should have kept Kirk Cousins. And I get he had the whole injury thing, but I'm like, that JJ McCarthy he's got a lot of work to do. And like to your point, Scotty, I agree with you. I think Sam Darnold should be the starter going out week 1, because JJ's got a lot of work he needs to do before he's ready to get rolled out, in my opinion.
Yeah, the one thing that stood out to me while we're diving into specifics on JJ was the cardinal sin he created he made over and over again, and that was throwing the ball late over the middle. Mm-hmm. He did it so many times. It's like, you don't even have to be an NFL quarterback. That's like one of the things they always teach you. Don't throw it late. Don't throw it, just don't do it, because the safeties in the NFL and the linebackers will be all over that. And I think at Michigan, he was able to get away with that because of like how dominant his team was. And to me, that's one of the more concerning things, was just like some of those cardinal sins that he was creating. It wasn't like, it was just like a miscommunication on an in-breaking or out-breaking route with a wide receiver. No, it was like literally things you just don't do and you can't do in the NFL. And those are the things that I honestly would scare me the most if I was looking at him, going into his first game.
Well, and I mean, we could talk about the elephant in the room. JJ McCarthy was on a team that predominantly ran the ball. So a lot of people were concerned that JJ couldn't throw the ball effectively, and I think we kind of saw a glimpse of that. And we're all overreacting in a week 1 preseason game, but like
we're perfectly reacting.
Yeah, that's what everybody else is doing. And
right.
I watched it and was just like, I don't know, man. Like I wasn't impressed. I was not impressed.
What did we talk about last year with these quarterbacks? And I think we've talked about it over the last few years. You kind of know. Yeah, we all kind of know. We talked about Zach Wilson, Kane. No, you kind of know. You have an idea, and it's really tough to break that mold once something's written and you have that idea in somebody. So we'll see if he can break that mold. But I think he's obviously trending in a lot of people's eyes of like, I don't know if this is going to work. So let's see if he can break that, because I think we're going to know pretty quickly.
I do think Sam Darnold is, assuming that Jordan Addison is playing and Hawkinson comes back relatively quickly, I think Sam Darnold's going to be a good quarterback. I do. I think he's been screwed a little bit throughout his career so far, and I think this is one of the best offenses he'll be able to play for consistently and hopefully have some consistent weapons on the field. I think he might be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're worried about, one last point we'll make about the Vikings is like, if you're worried about output from like either of those, Addison or Hawkinson or even Justin Jefferson. You have to remember Jefferson was putting up good numbers with Nick Mullins at quarterback. So, he's there. They will find a way to make it work with them.
Yeah. Michael Penix, did you guys get to watch the Falcons at all?
I didn't see that one.
This makes me excited for the Falcons long term, which I could not figure out for the life of me why the Falcons drafted Penix when they had Kirk Cousins. I still think it was kind of a silly decision. In a small part of me, and I know you guys are not going to agree with me, but a small part of me kind of feels bad for the Raiders because I think they really had Penix on their board as the guy to grab, and he didn't fall to them. And after watching him in preseason, I felt bad for the Raiders because I was like, man, this could have been your guy. Like, Penix looked really good in my opinion, and it was a small sample size, and I'm not going to go into a deep analysis, but I didn't get to watch the full game of it, but the clips that I had seen of Penix, I was like, dude, this guy could be the future of the Falcons, and I'd feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, when you watch Penix, we said the same thing before the draft. I mean, the big knock on Penix was his age and injury history. He was probably the most pro-ready quarterback to come out of this draft. I mean, not to say that he's going to be the best, but in terms of just being pro-ready and being mature and being able to digest an offense and run it effectively, I think Penix is the best quarterback for those things. So it's just a matter of when is he going to be able to play and how long is he going to be able to play? Is it going to be a Joe Burrow situation where he's always injured, or is he going to have a healthy career? And if he's the starter for a long period of time and stays healthy, I think Penix could be very, very, very good for the foreseeable future. And we've been saying that since, for months.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, but I got to ask this question. I'm sorry, Alan. I have to ask you both. Will Kirk Cousins start the entire year, or will we see Penix come out and become the starter? You think it's going to happen this year? Mm-hmm. I see. I disagree. I think
only in the case of injury. Well,
I think it's health. I think it comes down to health.
Okay.
I don't think Kirk is going to be healthy all year for that to happen. I think its health is going to play into it. I think that's where you see Penix. In of that game, the thing that impressed me most about Penix, and I think I even put it in our chat, I was kind of hyped on some of the plays he made, was he also had a pretty good connection with Chris Blair, who's a second-year guy of Alcorn State, wide receiver. I don't know, there seemed to be a little bit something there, but he was going to him on multiple occasions and even hit him for a 40-yard pass play after Chris fumbled the ball on one of the drives. And one of the interviews that Penix had right after that I was watching on the NFL Network was he told him he's coming right back to him. And it was such a veteran thing to say, where he's lifting up the wide receiver room and hey, I'm coming right back to you. And I think Falcons, it's interesting because I think the other thing is I think his ability could get him there, and him winning over the locker room and doing things like that for the players, I think is going to pay dividends for the Falcons. So I'm super interested. And I want to see Penix in this offense sooner rather than later. Not that I'm rooting for injury, but I think his Achilles I don't think he's going to be able to sustain it the full season.
Yeah, the injury situation would obviously be the primary reason. But honestly, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Even with Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, I am ecstatic about this offense. We've talked about it for so long that all they needed was a quarterback. They seem to have two quarterbacks that can be very serviceable. And I think as long as Kirk Cousins stays healthy, he is going to be electric this season just because of the weapons that they have. So this team is going to be good, and it's sort of molding into the 49ers type of situation where you could really throw Jimmy G in there and they could still make a Super Bowl. This offense is that good, I think. So I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a lot of success as long as his Achilles hold up.
Are you hopeful for Kyle Pitts? Is this a Kyle Pitts thing, or
no matter what, baby?
Kyle Pitts, no matter what. No, they got a lot of weapons. So I think the offense could be very good, even if Kyle Pitts doesn't dominate fantasy football like I expect him to.
It's interesting. You look at it, last year, we were all out on the Falcons. We were excited about what the potential could be, but Arthur Smith is a piece of shit. They didn't have a quarterback, and as soon as Kirk Cousins signed, everything changed. Everything changed. Everybody's oh my God, the Falcons are going to be amazing now. And it's interesting that one piece, and it's a huge piece to any NFL equation, that changes everything because they had all the personnel there. They just needed somebody to get them the damn ball.
Last offseason, we were talking about like, because all they had was Desmond Ridder, and we were all like, go find a fucking quarterback. Like, go find a quarterback, because that's what you need. And we're all idiots, and we were saying it, screaming it from the rooftops, and they, of course, didn't do it, and the offense fizzled out way more than it should have when they've got generational talents at multiple positions. It's just stupid. They were ridiculous.
Again, going back to the quarterback, you freaking know right away. I think, and then we let things play out. Oh, maybe they'll like magically discover something, or like, no, you freaking know. Desmond Ridder wasn't it. You're absolutely right, Slaps. Like this team got a shot in the arm when they got not one, but two quarterbacks that are significantly better than what they had last year.
I imagine if the Falcons could do it over, they wouldn't sign Kirk Cousins. No. I think they made that move because they were desperate for a quarterback. And they knew they needed to get one. And then after they did that, they really started deep diving on all the rookies coming in and realized they could get Penix. And I think that now they're like, damn, we shouldn't have done it. And obviously can't go back and change that. But I think they're kind of wishing they hadn't, because now they have a lot of money tied up with him.
I don't think they're stewing over it that much, because they have two quarterbacks who are very good, but also injury prone. So it's not a bad situation. Obviously it wasn't, the way it played out wasn't ideal. But all they need is a quarterback, and I think either of these guys can be that. And they have two quarterbacks who seem pretty good, but both are injury prone. So, it was clunky, but guess what? They're in a great situation right now. As a result.
Fantasy perspective, which one is the one to own? I would say this year in redraft and obviously Dynasty we know, but like in redraft, if you're drafting, which one do you think?
Yeah, it's Kirk Cousins.
But in Dynasty, it's Michael Penix.
Obviously it's Penix, because Kirk's 40.
Kirk's
old.
Yeah.
He's an old man.
He's on the latter side of his career. I can't even say his name. Stetson Bennett. Jeez. Did not look very great in the Rams outing here. Didn't look great at all.
Why didn't
4
he look
interceptions in the preseason?
You mean that's not good? That's not great.
Hard to believe, but that is actually bad.
But listen, did you see the end of that game? Because Stetson Bennett, after throwing 4 interceptions, rallied. And he made it was the best throw of the preseason thus far. Obviously, we haven't seen very many games. But Stetson Bennett's game-winning throw was a freaking dart. He was running to his opposite side, almost out of bounds, chucked it across the body, 30 yards into the end zone, dime for the game-winning touchdown. At that point, I was like, I don't give a shit what happened in the previous 3 quarters. That was fucking sick. Like, it was awesome.
Spin zone 4D chess. You can't have a game winner unless you're down, and he made sure they were down going into the end. So shout out. He was like, you know what? I want to have a game winner, so I'm gonna make sure we're down going at the end. Smart. He's just smart. That's what you want at quarterback. He's smart.
He's old and wise. Stetson Bennett.
Trying to give people.
He graduated at like 37 or something.
He's named after a hat.
Scotty, did you want to talk about the kickoff rule?
Yeah, it was just kind of a weird situation, and I a lot of the Chiefs players are saying, and Andy Reid said this too, that he's glad it happened in the preseason because it gave all of us a chance to learn. And I feel the same way, because I was very confused when all this happened. I was watching the Chiefs play, and Mecole Hardman went back to return a kick, and they did the weird kickoff thing. The ball bounced in the end zone and then like backspinned out of the end zone to the 1 yard line. And both the returners like just kind of looked at each other like, what do we do about this situation? And Mecole Hardman did what a lot of players would have done last year and every previous year, which is he took a knee in the end zone and then reached out and grabbed the ball and pulled it into the end zone, which would be a touchback typically. But because of the new kickoff rules now, even if the ball lands in the end zone, apparently, if it comes back into the landing zone, it's a live ball, and you have to return it or fall on it or do something. Because when he did that, they gave him a safety because it was in the landing zone, and he pulled it back into the end zone, downed it in the end zone. That's now a safety. So I'm glad that this happened now, because if that would have happened like week 10, like everything's kind of on the line, I would have been pissed. But it was very weird and hard to look at. It was like a weird situation that none of us are used to.
I don't understand. If you're a return man, don't you think like look, I'm not an NFL athlete, but I promise you, if I was to return kicks, I would probably read the rules so I fully understand.
Even
especially
Andy
if they're
Reid
going to enact a brand new. Well, yeah, but Andy Reid's got a million things going on at once. Like,
yeah,
I'm not saying that's an
Dave
excuse.
Too. That's on the special teams coach.
Like, yeah, like how do you not coach that
or
make sure they know?
Yeah,
like you said, I'm glad it happened now, so that way we're not talking about this in week 9 when a team is a fringe team is trying to make the playoffs and this kills them.
every special team session this week across all the NFL teams, they're talking about this exact thing. What do they do? The only thing one thing I hate this new kickoff. It's stupid. The landing zone's a dumb name. It's all stupid. It seems way too complicated for no reason. The landing zone makes no sense. Makes absolutely. I don't get it. They need to rechange. I think if they change the name of the landing zone to something cool, maybe I'll be on board. But
the splash zone.
Yeah, splash zone would be sick. Like the danger zone, the
danger zone.
Something.
I'm after watching these preseason games, I think I'm on board with the new kickoff. It's definitely weird, and it's not as good as the old kickoffs where you were actually getting returns at full speed. But if the option is between just getting rid of the kickoff altogether or just having touchbacks every single kickoff or this, I choose this 10 times out of 10 because we saw some exciting plays come out of it, and we're not even seeing these teams actually like drawing stuff up because they don't want to give away any of their plans in the preseason. So we're going to see some weird reverses and some all sorts of weird schemes come out of this, and I think it is going to be exciting.
Do you think we're going to see more touchdowns out of this?
Yeah. Yes.
I think so.
I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I imagine it was the return rate the last couple of years have been incredibly low.
Yeah. So those of us that play in leagues with, obviously most have defense special teams. I think you take a little gander at this because this is gonna win you and lose you some games from a fantasy perspective. 100%. Just
100%.
This rule is gonna change things. You're gonna the ability to break one, I think, is a little bit more wide open. Even though I hate it, I think it's gonna add a little bit more value to those defense special teams.
I wonder when it leaks down to college.
Yeah, I don't know.
No. I wish the NFL had college's overtime rules because the college overtime rules are sick. Yeah. You just start at the 25 and you go for it. Like that'd be way better.
I do like that.
We got that in the playoffs kind of now.
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
The Chiefs also lost one of my old players, Hollywood Brown. He suffered
He
an
didn't
injury.
die. Oh,
well, yeah, he just suffered an injury.
You made it sound like he died.
Dislocated joint.
No, what joint is it?
Say it.
Guys.
I've been practicing it for a while, so I can teach you once you try. But you have to try.
Okay. See, I don't like when we do this. Sternoclavicular.
Yeah.
Sternoclavicular.
That's pretty much what I came up with, too.
Okay.
Well, it's a clavicle, so I assumed it was sternoclavicular.
But it's clavicular. Because of the suffix on the end of this word, it changes the A sound.
I don't know. I'm just going to tell all the Brainiacs right now, this is in giant bold type on our show notes, and in parentheses it says, "Say it, Hunter, say it." So I tried my best.
You did. Shout out, Scotty.
Shout out, Scotty. Thank you. Juju was released. We kind of already covered that, which is slightly surprising just because the Patriots don't have any wide receivers. So I was like, man, like you let go of Juju. But then I think about it and I'm like, is TikTok boy causing issues in the locker room? And maybe they're just like, it's time to move on from this guy.
It's his knees. He's not reliable. You can't have him out there for every game and he's going to be sitting a lot. It's his knees. The only chance he has right now is a contender looking to just kind of fill out a room where he can come make some plays later in the season, but his knees, they're not great.
Well, he has also got a ridiculously terrible personality, and I think Gerard Mayo, as a first-time head coach, is probably trying to take hold of the locker room early. Yeah. So, like, anyone who's causing problems, like, get the fuck out of here. We're rebuilding anyway. We don't need you.
Do you think it was a miscommunication? Mayo probably tried to unfollow him on TikTok and accidentally cut him.
Yeah, maybe. He's on the wrong software.
Unsubscribe.
He's like, oh, damn it. Well, whatever. He's gone.
Last thing I want to talk about before we get out of here, Jerry Jones, the old skin bag himself. He was asked about CD Lamb, and what? He's an old bag of skin and bones.
Skin bag gets me because Scotty wrote that thing on Herbert a while back. It was his little skin bag.
Yeah, decaying skin bag.
So now Jerry Jones is.
Can I read the Jerry Jones quote? I just really want everyone to understand this. Okay, so this is what.
Say it as if you were Jerry Jones, if you could, though, please.
Yeah,
say it with a Texas accent. Like.
You want me to do it?
Pretend you have a lot of oil money.
Here's the thing: I respect the bit. But I don't want to distract from the content of what this quote actually is, because it sounds like Joe Biden wrote it after he woke up at 2 a.m. This is what he said. He said, "Now I understand completely the angst that's happening when you're anxious about and someone says anything about whether you're missed or not. Well, CD, you're missed, okay? But you're not missed out here competing, and it doesn't put any pressure any place on us." Like, what the fuck? What does that mean?
You remember when I called him a skin bag?
I understood
He's
exactly what he said.
He's a senile skin bag.
He seems maybe senile. I just wish, like, as the United States of America, like, we can look at our politics and we can look at the people on TV and the people who own NFL teams. We should just come together and say, if you can't speak in complete sentences, you don't get the job. Like, that's the standard.
Okay.
Well, that's not a job. He owns them.
He owns them. He can do whatever.
Take it away.
Okay,
Take
here's
it away
what I
from
got.
him.
He Magellaned his way through it, but I saw, well, CD, you're missed, okay? Which I would take that and be like, oh, Jerry misses me.
He misses me. Old Poppy
We're
misses
ready to
me.
go. Like, that's pretty. And then he meandered his way out of that one. But like,
Yeah.
all I heard was you're missed. So I'm taking that and run with it if I'm CD.
I'm sure CD understands what he said because they've had conversations in person, and he's like, you have to skip every third word to understand what he's saying. And it's just like,
he speaks in code.
Yeah. It's like Pig Latin, but Jerry
speaks in code.
It's like
did you see
Mad Libs trying to figure out what he's talking about.
Did you see some of the reports that were coming out this week that like the Chiefs were interested in trading for CD, and there was like random posts coming out that like, oh, there's a trade package in play. It's like, whoever CD's agent is, like, shout out for the positive spin somewhere. That was never happening.
No, I can't believe Jerry like is. I mean, the gist of that terrible sentence or that terrible quote that he said is, you're not missed out here competing, and it doesn't put any pressure on us. So like, Jerry's doubling down on the fact that like he doesn't feel pressured to get CeeDee Lamb a contract, which is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
Dumb.
Like that is between Dak, CD, and Micah. CD's your most important player in my opinion. So to not try and figure something out and get this done is just completely absurd. And you should feel pressure because you had stated all offseason how you were all in this year, and it's like you did nothing, and you're not even going to pay the guys that you need to pay to keep them around.
No, they have nobody else to throw to.
No,
who are they going to throw to? They have
Brandon
to.
Cooks, Michael Gallup's not there.
They have to pay. I don't know. I don't know if Jerry remembers who's on his team. Actually, this actually might be a good.
He's
point.
like, we got Zeke back. We're fine.
I saw Michael Irvin. I think we're good. We're not going to pay CD.
I saw Michael Irvin once. We're fine. Now that's why I have a cousin who's a Cowboys fan, and he came up to me and was like, "Hey, like, you hear that we're trading you our best receiver?" I'm like, "No, you're fucking not. This is all bullshit. All this is bullshit." And eventually, someone's going to kick down Jerry's door and say, "Okay, like, the games are over now. Let's go ahead and sign all of our players back. Like, let's stop dicking around here." And Jerry's going to be like, "Okay, whatever." And then they're going to do it, and it's going to be the same thing.
That is the impression I wanted you to read that in the entire time.
Yeah.
You robbed us, Matt. You robbed us.
Yeah, it was a prime moment to sound like a senile little skin bag. That's it, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys doing this. It was great talking football, and it has gotten me so damn excited for the start of the season. So we got a couple more weeks of preseason, so I'm sure we're going to be having some revolving conversations about that. But boy, oh boy, did it just it reignited something in me. I knew I missed football, but I didn't realize how much until I actually got to watch it and like watch the starters for just a little bit. And I'm like, oh my god, it's back! Like a little just spark in me just lit up. So I'm very excited.
Did the 6 months feel fast or slow?
Slow. This was the most excruciating offseason of my life, I think.
I would agree with that.
The podcast makes it worse, too, because we're just still talking and thinking about it all the time.
I know.
Yeah.
But
we had to talk about freaking Ayuk for however many god-awful weeks.
Oh, we're going to talk about him again.
Christ.
Not today.
No,
but we will. His name will come up again. Unless we want to name him the new Voldemort, and he who shall not be named.
Maybe just because
that was Aaron Rodgers for a while. So
we haven't talked about Aaron Rodgers. Let's put him at the top next week. Let's put him at the top of next week.
I'll text him, see if he can come on.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
All right, gentlemen, I appreciate it. I love you guys. Brainiacs, appreciate you guys tuning in. Go check out leatherbrains.com. I am absolutely serious. There's some amazing, not only graphics, but articles over there. Shout out to our graphics team for making those articles, and shout out to our writers because they're doing one hell of a job. I love reading all the content that is on there on a daily basis, whether it's DFS, fantasy football, NFL team breakdowns, whatever it is. There's a lot of different content, and it is a very enjoyable experience. So go check it out. Hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to us at. I love all of you so very dearly, and I'm going to leave now. So we
are
out.
If you enjoyed this episode, Make sure you tune into our new releases every week on your favorite podcast app. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out leatherbrains.com for all of your fantasy football needs. And remember, Brainiacs, a championship should be more than a fantasy.